Hello, and welcome to Catholic Courses, and to this course entitled Sacred Art, A Guide to Christian Masterpieces. I'm Dr. Jem Sullivan, and I'm delighted to be here as we begin this course that aims to help you better understand and appreciate masterpieces of sacred and religious art. The objective of this course is to learn not only how to appreciate the artistic elements of a work of Christian art, but to learn some basic approaches and practical ways to uncover the theological and spiritual depths of a work of Christian art. As we journey through the 8 lectures of this course, we hope to discover, or perhaps rediscover, the treasures of sacred and religious art that come to us from 2,000 years of the Christian tradition. Before we begin, allow me to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to understand and be inspired by sacred and religious art. By purchasing this Catholic course, you have not only committed your time and resources to learning about masterpieces of art, you are also making a sound investment in your ongoing education and formation so as to deepen your knowledge and to renew your faith. In this introductory lecture, we will focus on 2 points. First, we begin with the question, what is Christian art? And to answer this question, we start with simple definitions of terms. We'll take a look at words like Christian art, sacred art, and religious art. By highlighting some brief definitions of these phrases, we set the stage for our use of these terms for the rest of this course. Once we have defined these terms, we will proceed to some basic assumptions or presuppositions that will guide our discussions on sacred and religious art. We'll try to answer the question, why devote time and attention to Christian art in the first place? Do masterpieces of sacred and religious art simply serve as a way to access the historical, social, and cultural information of the past? Or do they also serve other purposes that we tend to overlook today? Can sacred and religious art teach, inspire, and deepen our understanding of the Christian faith today, in the here and now, as it did in past centuries? As we identify some basic assumptions for a course on sacred and religious art, we will walk through a general overview or introduction to the main themes of the entire course. In this way, you can look forward with anticipation to some of the interesting topics that we will take up in these 8 lectures. The basic assumptions will also help to place our study of Christian art within the context and perspective of Christian faith. So thank you once again for joining in this Catholic course on sacred and religious art. Let's get started now with some basic definitions of terms. If you signed up for this course, chances are you are someone who loves art. Perhaps you are an artist, a painter, a sculptor, a musician, or someone who appreciates beauty reflected in masterpieces of Christian art. Perhaps you are a student, a parent, a teacher, a pastor, or someone interested in learning more about your Catholic faith, of which art is an important dimension. More often than not, the words Christian art, sacred art, and religious art are used somewhat loosely. These words are often spoken of synonymously. In everyday common usage, these terms are generally used interchangeably, as if they refer to the same realities. But is sacred and religious art the same thing? For the purpose of this course, we begin by making an important distinction between the terms sacred and religious art, because in fact, they are not the same realities. A work of sacred art may become religious art, and a work of religious art may be adapted in such a way that it serves as sacred art. But they are distinct and different, but not separate. So let us consider how they are different. Broadly speaking, a work of Christian art is, as one would expect, art that is Christian in origin, theme, and expression. And the sources of Christian art are the sources of Christian revelation, that is, sacred scripture and sacred tradition. The events and figures of salvation history as recorded in the Bible, the Church's teachings handed down through 2,000 years of the Christian tradition, and the lives of the saints. Generally speaking, these are the sources and inspiration of Christian art. So what then is sacred art? A work of sacred art goes a step further in its purpose and context. For sacred art is any form of art, whether it's painting, sculpture, architecture, mosaic, stained glass, sacred music, that which is created specifically and solely for the purpose and context of the Holy Eucharist. Sacred art is liturgical art, in that its sole and distinct purpose is to serve and to enhance the praise and worship of God in the sacred liturgy. Sacred art is always Christian in origin, theme, and purpose, as it draws on the sources of divine revelation, that is sacred scripture and sacred tradition, for its inspiration. Let's pause to think here of an example of a masterpiece of sacred art. I'll start with an example that is well known, perhaps, to you. It is the art that adorns the interior space of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. And I'm thinking in particular of the frescoes on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. There we have a stunning example of a work of sacred art. This masterpiece was created by the Renaissance artistic genius Michelangelo, solely and exclusively for the sacred liturgical space, in which key papal liturgies and events take place. So what does the term religious art refer to? Religious art, on the other hand, has a much broader scope, for it includes any artistic form that is religious in nature, theme, and purpose. Religious art is generally created for a wider context, and a work of religious art expresses the religious dimension of human experience. Because of this wider context, it can serve many purposes beyond a specifically liturgical function. In other words, religious art expresses more broadly biblical, spiritual, and religious themes in human experience. It may serve to express the Catholic faith in sensory forms, or it can serve as it has for centuries to educate, inspire, and communicate the Christian faith to generations of believers. A work of religious art may find its way into a sacred space, but it was not originally created or specifically intended for the liturgical space. Let's think now of an example of a masterpiece of religious art. The one that comes to mind is an image of the return of the prodigal son. I am thinking of a beautiful example from the Italian school. In this mysterious and evocative work of religious art, the artist depicts a biblical theme from a gospel parable. The painting expresses in a profound way the religious dimension of the human experience of alienation, sin, forgiveness, reconciliation, and above all, divine mercy.